All right, everybody. Welcome once again to another episode of the Red Delta Project podcast and live feed Q&A here on the Red Delta Project YouTube channel. As always, Matt Schifferly, founder of the Red Delta Project, and I'm here to help you maximize your results with minimalist approaches to diet and exercise. As always, please do check out the full list of the books in the RDP library down below in the description, because that is how I fund these episodes here, because as always, they're free for you, but they are not quite free for me. So check out titles like Grind Style Calisthenics, Smart Bodyweight Training, and Overcoming Isometrics to upgrade your knowledge and improve your workouts starting today. All right, so today we're looking at toxic beliefs we love to hold on to in our fitness culture. I've done several episodes like this in the past because so much of your potential boils down to our emotional beliefs. What do we believe about ourselves, about the exercises that we're doing? And last week in the episode, I covered the very massive importance of self-esteem and how basically your self-esteem can make or break your potential flat out of the gate. And so today what we're looking at is many beliefs that are kind of symptoms of poor self-esteem, but these are so insidious that we often are doing ourselves so much detrimental harm, while at the same time believing that we are doing things, or at least adopting these beliefs, in our best interests. So belief number one is perfectionism. Like perfectionism, if you haven't come across this idea, is one of the most toxic beliefs we could possibly have. And you hear people say things like, oh, I'm a perfectionist and stuff like that. And that's different. That is a little different. Saying that you're a perfectionist, meaning that you have a high standard, a lot of demands upon yourself. You want things to be really good. That's not perfectionism. That's saying I want things to be really good. I have a high standard, and that's usually a sign of higher self-esteem, because you're saying I'm not willing to settle. Like, I want something that is of a higher quality, therefore I'm going after that. That's not perfectionism. Perfectionism is where you have this idea in your mind. It's often perpetrated by individuals you put on a pedestal, the people you see on social media, the people who have Photoshop and stuff. It's like they've got a perfect body, they've got a perfect athletic performance, they got a perfect life, and it seems perfect in our mind. So therefore, when we say, I want that, we internally feel I have to make my habits perfect or myself perfect in some way to have even a ghostly shot of achieving that level. That's perfectionism. And what that does is it screws you over several different ways, but also kind of lets you off the hook. Because when you believe you have to have a perfect diet and a perfect workout and perfect life and perfect sleep and everything's got to be perfect, then of course you can never live up to that level of perfectionism. So you're always letting yourself off the hook of your own expectations, saying that's okay. I can't have a perfect this, a perfect that, a perfect whatever because of my job and my social life, and I want to enjoy food and whatever. So it gives us a back door. The other way perfectionism really screws you over is because if you can somehow have that perfectionism obtainable, right? Like, let's say you just have a lower standard that this is what a perfect diet looks like never eating this type of food or whatever. It limits you. It has a glass ceiling that it imposes upon your potential, because once you've achieved that level, you stop moving forward. You stop learning ways to progress and advance and improve things because it's perfect. You can't improve on perfection. So my diet's perfect, my workout's perfect, my technique is perfect, everything about what I'm doing is perfect. So I'll just keep going on this path, not knowing that the way to moving forward and getting better results isn't about doing things perfectly. It's about doing things better. And that's what the way we get out of perfectionism is to recognize that results and the results that we're after, whether it's losing weight or building muscle or a better golf swing or whatever, don't come from having everything right or even correct. It's just saying, what can you do now? And then having it 1% better next day, week, or whatever. You can have a craptastic diet and still be losing weight. You can have a workout program that on paper doesn't really look like anything special and still be building muscle. I was talking with a gentleman today at the gym, and he's like, my arms are getting bigger. I feel like I'm getting stronger in my arms. I like what I see when I look in the mirror and stuff. And he's like, but we're not really doing any arm specific work. Like, we're not doing curls and stuff. How is that even possible? And I said, well, you don't need to be doing curls. You just need to be bending your elbow in some way, pulls, rows, that sort of thing. It's like, but if I wanted to build muscle, this isn't like the type of workout that I would do. It's like, doesn't matter. It just has to be better than what you're doing before. And that's the real essence of how we get out of the perfectionist trap, is to say, just what can you do? Start there and just make it better, because better gets results, not perfectionism. So along with those lines, also, the second attitude that really kind of screws us over is the all or nothing idea, right? You hear this sometimes. I'm an all or nothing kind of person. I'm all in or all out kind of thing. And it's similar to perfectionism, but it's different in the regards of how much we like to put our attention towards something. Like, we don't want to half-ass it. Like, I am all in on my diet. I am all in on trying to lose weight. I'm all in on trying to go to the gym and stuff like that. And if I can't do that, then forget it. And I, quote, take a break and stuff like that. And the reason why this doesn't work very well is because you're basically setting yourself up to say, I can only practice the habits or try to make improvements when the stars align in my life and I have everything right where I need it to be, so I can make this 100% commitment, right? We're told that all the time. We've got to commit and stuff. And the fact of the matter is, life very rarely allows us to play with a perfect hand and be all in on the poker table, right? It's like every hand you're like all in or not in at all, right? And this is the reason why a lot of people who are like, I'm on all or nothing, usually end up with nothing, because they can't go all in most of the time, or even almost all of the time. So they end up doing nothing, and they wait for that perfect opportunity when they can give everything they've got. But of course, there's a lot more to life than working out and planning your diet and everything like that. So the way that we get out of this is, once again, getting back to that root of just do something. Anything. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be a lot. It doesn't have to be all in. Right? It's still working on something, because we get results by doing something to some degree and then progressing it over time. And that's a way that we get out of that all or nothing approach. I always use the analogy. It's like driving a car and saying the only time it's worth driving your car is when you can go at 100 miles an hour. And if you can't go 100 miles an hour, there's no point in ever driving your car. I can't get to work. Why? Because I can't drive 100 miles an hour. There's rush hour traffic. I can't go to the store. Why not? Because there's a speed limit and 50 miles an hour and speed traps and stuff like that. I can't go 100 miles an hour. So I'm only going to drive if I can drive 100 miles an hour, which means you're never going to drive. So that all or nothing attitude, it's got to go, and just make headway however, whenever you can, because sometimes life allows us to speed up, and sometimes life means we've got to slow down a little bit. But as long as you keep moving forward, you'll keep moving forward, basically. The third attitude that has got to go is this idea of basically not having enough self-trust in yourself. And this one's very rampant within our fitness culture, because there's lots of ideas out there. It's kind of a little bit along the same lines of a lot of religious ideas out there of, you're the sorry sinner, and you're the one to blame, and you're the one who has the DNA and the genetics and stuff, and you're just going to be fat and weak and lazy and stuff, and you need something to come and save you from yourself. You need a diet or a workout program or an exercise guru or whatever to come and save you from yourself. Because if you trust yourself and left to your own devices, you're just going to go down a real bad road, because you're a born sinner and all these other ideas, right? This idea's got to go, because ultimately at the end of the day, no one else is in charge but you. You're the one calling your shots. I have about that much power and influence over your results. Even if you meet with me one-on-one as a personal training session, I know that I have far less influence than I would like to have in your overall ability to get the results that you want. So if you can't trust yourself, if you can't depend on your own decision-making, and you always have to defer to someone else, one, you're putting your results in the hands of someone who honestly doesn't really know what's best for you, because you're the one living your life. You're the one knowing your situation, and you're the one who has a front row seat to your circumstances, so you can make the changes and adjustments. And two is, to be perfectly honest with you, no one's going to care about your results more than you. Because I'll be perfectly honest, like when I'm training clients and stuff, my attention's on my clients and I am 100% focused. But I'm not laying awake at night going like, I wonder how Mary can improve that pull-up technique. It's like, no, it's the furthest thing from my mind, right? So you have to be in charge of your own health and fitness, calling your own shots. And these ideas of you're the one addicted to junk food and you're the one who's lazy and our caveman DNA is going to screw you over 20 ways from here till Sunday is not helping us at all. So recognize that not only are you the one in charge, but you're the only hope you've got. You're the only person you can fully trust and rely on. And if we don't have that because of some of these toxic attitudes and ideas, then you're always going to be kind of fighting yourself. And as I always say, you cannot fight yourself and win. You have to learn to have that self-trust. And as I touched on last week on the self-esteem episode, one of the best ways to build self-esteem isn't to get praise and accolades from other people. It's to give yourself the ability to make choices for yourself, like choosing to go to bed half an hour earlier, choosing to have steamed vegetables when you order a dish at a restaurant, choosing to go to the gym. Every time you do these little habits where you are building autonomous decision-making for your own best interest, you're building that self-esteem for yourself. But it also goes the other way too, like choosing to have a dish of ice cream for a dessert, choosing to have the occasional slice of pizza and stuff, and knowing that you can trust yourself to have these little treats and indulgences also builds self-esteem, because you know yourself, you know what you can do, and you're giving yourself control, because ultimately self-control is not about fighting yourself and your cravings and your desires. It's about putting yourself in control as opposed to the expert. That's why I always tell clients and stuff that and people I meet with, I always tell them, rule number one, I'm not in control. I'm not in charge. You're in charge. As the client, you're the one who's calling the shots. I'm the one who's there to guide you, but I'm not the hero in the story. You are. I'm just here to say, oh, okay, based on what you've told me, this is the way I recommend you go. But you could very easily say, nope, I'm not doing that. I don't want to do push-ups. I say, okay, then I've got to figure out something else, because if you refuse to do something, I can't make you do it. I'm fully aware of that. So you're the one in charge. Have some self-control, put yourself in control, and the discipline to rely and trust your own self. And yes, of course, you're going to make mistakes. Yes, of course, you're going to fall flat on your face from time to time. That's part of the learning process. It's part of what is necessary for you to learn what you actually need and to make better shots calls in the future. So those are 3 toxic ideas that they've got to go. Perfectionism, all or nothing, and this idea that you can't trust yourself and that you need someone or something or whatever to save you because you're bent and broken and a sorry sinner and just doomed to hell and hellfire and all that kind of thing if you are left to your own vices. Sorry, I've got an itch on my nose like crazy. The smoke out here in Colorado has been unbelievable. It's like you walk outside and it's like, woof, it's pretty noticeable there. So anyway, let us get into some of these questions and see what we can do to talk to you folks. Everybody's coming on. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. So Matt, thoughts on training with resistance bands for assistance? Yeah, I mean, assistance is very good. A lot of times people use it primarily for pull-ups. Pull-ups there for dips also works to a large degree. I've seen people jerry-rig something where they have a band around their chest when they're doing things like one-arm push-ups and stuff. It's very good. I mean, it certainly can work, for sure. But personally, I've always much preferred just going with a progressive technique, largely just because it means you don't need as much equipment. It's less setup, like using an easier push-up, an easier pull-up technique, an easier dipping technique. It just is something that is more accessible much of the time. Plus, because it's technically based rather than equipment based, because when things are equipment based, you change the resistance or the assistance based on the equipment. You use different weights and stuff like that. But when things are technical based, you can change the resistance or the assistance based on your technique, which is something you can change on the fly. So you don't need to stop, change things around, or be like, oh, I don't have the weights for that, or I don't have the equipment for that. It could be as simple as shifting your weight a little bit forward or back, or using a bigger range of motion, or having a little bit less assistance in your legs or whatever. So it gives you a little bit more options with progressive technique. Granted, it does take some skill and ability to hone in that technique, but once you have it, you have a lot of abilities. But yeah, overall, I mean, bands are fantastic for that sort of thing, for giving you some ideas. All right, next question. Jen's thoughts on stability versus balance training. Also, what's the deal with your ISO loop? ISO loop, just to give you folks a preview, I'm having a special contest this coming week where I am giving away 3 autographed copies of my book, Overcoming Isometrics, along with an ISO loop. More details, keep an eye on the Red Delta Project Instagram for details on that contest. But anyway, this is a very good question because stability versus balance training, they are very different. Balance and stability are not one and the same. They are in fact different. Balance, the way I always describe this is take like a post or a pole. I usually take like a wooden stick and balance it in your hand, and you're reacting to it like you're balancing it and like a baseball bat or something on end. And like that's balance. Balance is weak, it's reactive, and you don't have a whole lot of control. And basically you're just holding on and trying to stay upright. And sometimes balance is what we need to do, but it doesn't really help you very much. Stability training is very different because, as I've always said, you're only as strong as you are stable. So if you improve your stability, your ability to get stronger and build muscle and less joint pain and all that other stuff goes through the roof. In fact, most of the time we should just be focusing more on building as much stability as possible. That's why grind style calisthenics always has a stability phase baked into the warm-up. So that way we're always improving our stability. So stability is where the real gems are. And when you improve your stability, people will be like, your balance is so good. It's like, well, it's stability. Actually, it's not balance. It's stability is more proactive. It's saying, I'm holding this with a firm grip. So it's like taking that stick that you were balancing and you're grabbing onto the stick and holding it. And what that does is not only can you more easily stay upright, but you can also move it around at will and have more control. So stability gives you control. Balance just keeps you from falling over. And the ISO loop, the challenge with the ISO loop, this is one of the things about fitness equipment. I tell you, when you're an inventor and you're trying to build equipment, you get all sorts of knowledge about the business of equipment manufacturing out there, which is why sometimes when people criticize products and stuff like that, I'm like, God, you have no idea what it takes to make something like this. The deal with the ISO loop is this. The ISO loop is basically a nylon strap with a cam buckle on it. Now, there's a couple of little details in there that make it more isometric friendly. It's 10 feet long. It's special nylon that is soft on the skin. It has a pointed end, so it's really easy to thread and unthread, which often is necessary for isometrics. Sometimes cam buckles can be hard to thread initially and stuff. And the bottom line is, working with WorldFit, they were like, okay, this is what we did. This is the cost. This is what we're looking at. And the bottom line is it's going to be one of those things where if we want to sell it for a competitive price, we would lose our shirts. We wouldn't be able to sell it for a price that would make it worth selling because so many people are going to look at it and be like, I could just, it is just a couple dollars, but more people are going to just go on Strapworks or buy something off of at Home Depot, which is like 99% of the same thing, and say, I'll just buy this and save a couple of bucks. So it's not really that sure if it's a feasible product just yet. And this is where a lot of inventions go, is a lot of inventions are really good inventions, but they're not marketable. They're not something that can be feasible as a cost-effective business. And as a result, they never see the light of day, largely because it doesn't make any sense for a company to build them. And that's kind of the conundrum the ISO loop is in right now. But I'll keep you posted. And like I said, I do have some that I will be giving away next week in the Red Delta Project Instagram. Keep your eyes on that. All right. More questions, more class questions here. Let's see. Oh, going through. All right. Hey, man, I used to exercise a lot, but I lost my motivation. What should I do? I feel lost. Hey, motivation comes and goes, man. And this is, keep in mind that motivation is always a very changing balance. It's a formula, really. Motivation is always down to cost to benefit ratio. You always hear about that in economics class, right? Cost to benefit ratio. We were talking about just now. Can a product come to market? Well, there's a cost to bringing it to the market. And is there going to be enough of a benefit in bringing it to the market in order to make it worthwhile? And if the cost matches or exceeds the benefit, there's no way that we can or should bring it to market. Well, motivation is the same thing, only it's emotional payoff. Emotional payoff. So when we do anything, any sort of habit, we're always doing this checks and balance in our mind and in our hearts on an emotional level of there's a cost to this in effort. and there's a payoff that I'm getting. And the payoff can be anything. It could be, look at my sweet gains, to I love de-stressing after a hard day of work. I love going for this run with my best friend. I love spending time with the dog. Like, a payoff can be anything, right? But basically, when we're losing motivation, that's our subconscious saying the cost is too high, the reward is not worth this, get out, kind of thing. And oftentimes we're told, get out of the situation, just ignore it, sort of thing. But a loss of motivation is a real thing that we should be honoring, because it basically means it's not worth it. What you're doing takes too much effort and the rewards are not worth it. So that's why I'm always going after a two-pronged strategy, is use methods that have the highest potential reward. Okay, so things like calisthenics, isometrics, compound movements, what type of activities offer the most various rewards, and what things have the lowest cost, particularly in perceived effort. So again, calisthenics and stuff like that. Like, for example, let's say you want to build up your biceps, and you could, after work, be like, oh, geez, I just do not want to go to the gym. Okay, fine. I'll make myself go. So you get in your car and you fight rush hour traffic, and you get to the gym, and it's like, oh, I don't like these people here. I feel so uncomfortable in the gym, and I got to change, and oh, shoot, I forgot my shoes. So I got to work out my dress shoes and everything like that. An hour and a half has gone by. You've already spent all this effort and you've got no benefit whatsoever. Versus if you had a pull-up bar at home, like in a doorway or something, and you're like, man, I am famished. Okay, go home. Time to make some dinner. Oh, that's right, I've got leftover Mexican. You pop it in the microwave. You're like, all right, 2 minutes on the microwave. Let's see how many pull-ups I can get in 2 minutes. Boom, 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 boom. You get 15 pull-ups. Good, rock and roll, have dinner. You just created a hell of a lot more benefit from those 2 minutes with minimum effort compared to trying to go to the gym and fight rush hour traffic and all that sort of thing. So the formula for motivation is simple: high benefit, low cost. When motivation's waning, get the cost down. Consider micro workouts. Check out the playlist I have at Red Delta Project YouTube channel. The less cost, the less effort, the less you have to put into it, the better. And do things that are more holistic, that bring you many different benefits. Like, don't just go and say, I'm doing this because I want bigger muscles or I want to lose weight. That's great, but do it for much more than that, to relieve stress, to feel good, to improve your energy level, to decrease joint pain, to be social, to have a feeling of power and strength. Like, every time you work out, you should be getting many different benefits from it. And if that's not the case, then we need to work on the approach for sure. So yeah, low cost, high reward. That's the way to go for motivation. And the unfortunate thing is, so many of our approaches to fitness these days are based on flawed premises that are simply not practical for everyday people like you and me. I was rewriting again the introduction to my next book, Micro Workouts, and just an update on that one. And basically, this new introduction makes a lot more sense than what it was, because the first one was absolutely crap. But the bottom line is that our current approaches to working out are based on methods that were never meant for everyday individuals. They're way too costly, they take way too much effort, and they can't possibly return enough benefit for them to be worthwhile. So it's kind of like that ISO loop scenario. Most people are like that with their workouts. When we go after common approaches to exercise, is the cost is just way too high, the benefits are not going to be worth it, and it's a flawed premise from the get-go. And that's where micro workouts can step in and reverse that formula. So that way, now it is practical. Now it is worthwhile. Now it is beneficial for most average individuals. All right. Here's another one. Circuit training in circuits, good in the long run. Absolutely. Circuit training is very good. It's a good way to decrease the bloated downtime in your workouts. But keep in mind that circuit training can be done so many different ways for various objectives. I think these days, the popular common thing to be doing is CrossFit-y kind of Orange Theory style circuits, where you're just kind of racing through it and going through it quickly. Keep in mind, you can do circuit training and take your sweet time with it. You don't need to be racing the clock. Hell, you don't even need to be going fast. You can take a moment or two in between each station and catch your breath and make sure that you have a good amount of energy for the next exercise. And if you're trying to do exercises for the sake of building muscle and strength, I highly recommend that, because the faster you go through it, the more you're turning it into kind of a conditioning endurance style approach. And that's not going to be quite the best way for you to go about it if you want to really put a lot of effort into building the strength and muscle. So play around with those rest periods. It doesn't have to be much. And keep in mind, you don't need like 20 exercises either. Like 3 exercises, boom, 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 2 or 3 times around, and you're done. Go have dinner, and you're finished. All right. More questions, everybody. Love hearing from you. Thank you so much for coming on. I do sincerely appreciate it. And it's one of those things where I learn just as much from you guys sometimes as much as anything else. I hope you're getting a lot from the ideas here and stuff like that. Well, here's a very welcome question. Are you natural? Absolutely. Well, technically, no. I mean, one, I wasn't supposed to live past the first 24 hours of my life. So the very fact that I'm here is testament to modern medicine and incubators and all that sort of thing, because I was born very much prematurely, and it was not a pretty picture, to just say the least. So the very fact that I'm still alive means that there was artificial intervention for sure. But I know what you're saying. Like steroids, no. To be perfectly honest with you, drug intervention and stuff like that scares the mother living hell out of me. I've met way too many people who aren't on drugs, but who used to be on drugs, and they're like, yeah, I was a bodybuilder, and I see these pictures of me, and I'm looking at the picture, and then I look at them, look at the picture, and I'm like, what happened? And they're like, well, once you get off the drugs. And I'm like, yikes, man. And it's like a steep decline. I'm not saying, the thing is too, is steroids, I don't know anything about it, but I do know enough that it's not as simple as pop a pill or jam a needle in your ass and you're going to get these results. It's a very, very complicated world, and it's very easy to mess up. So I do not want to go down that road. And if I ever did, like, hey, get paid $20 million for this movie role, I can understand why people do it. But you best believe I'd have one hell of a good doctor telling me what to do. I would not be figuring it out on my own. That's for darn sure. All right. Do you do yoga? And if you do, what are the basic yoga moves for mobility? Now, here's one of the interesting things, Don, is I can't stand yoga. You'd think a bodyweight guy or a calisthenics guy would be all upon the yoga. And I do a yoga class every once in a while. I have friends who do it and they invite me. I'm like, all right, I'll go, kind of thing. But every time I do it, I feel terrible. Like, I basically imagine sitting on a flight, transcontinental flight, or across the Pacific Ocean, fly to Japan from California. And you're just sitting there and you're eating crappy foods and you're bored out of your mind. And then when you get off the plane and you're jet lagged and everything, that's how I feel after a yoga class. It is not my cup of tea. And I keep trying different types and different kinds and stuff like that, thinking it'll be different, but it's not. Like, I need to move a lot. I can't be holding postures and stretching and stuff like that. I don't know if it's my body or if it's just I'm not doing something quite right, but yoga has never really served me very well for whatever reason. So that's the reason I don't do yoga. We got to listen to our body sometimes. Good training should feel, or effective training should feel good. All right. Next question, Zabe. How many hours a week do you train, sir? That's really hard to nail down because my training is so piecemeal throughout the day. I usually don't say, okay, life, time out, time for me to go work out, and I'm going to work out for this amount of time. And okay, it's been an hour or whatever. Okay, life, time in. My workouts are literally kind of like snacking on the go. And it's like, okay, I've got 15 minutes until my next class that I got to teach. I'm going to get my pull-up workout in. And it's not like I'm watching the clock either. Like, when I do a workout, it's like I start it and I'm finished with the workout when I'm finished with the workout. I'm not trying to work out for an allotted amount of time. And then, of course, on the weekends, like, I'll go for a bike ride or two. And like 2 weeks ago, I went for 2 bike rides, and each one was about 2 to 3 hours. And then this past weekend, I hardly went for any bike rides. So it really can vary. To be honest with you, I really have no idea. It would be a pure guess on my part. I might as well just flip a coin and be like, 20 hours. How's that sound to you, kind of thing. I really don't base my training on any kind of time scale. It's done when it's done, and I do it when I need to do it. And again, I don't have any sort of even structured routine that I follow because I work what needs to be worked when it needs to be worked, as much as it needs to be worked, and then I'm done. And I know that's not the answer you're looking for, but I will say this. It's probably a lot less than you think. because whenever I do work out, when other people are in the gym, I'll be like, oh, time for a workout. I'm like, yeah, don't blink, you'll miss it kind of thing. Because my workouts are pretty quick, hence the micro workouts and stuff like that. All right, new workout, Master Jack. Are rings a good lifetime investment? Absolutely, man. Rings, suspension straps, like the NOSC straps I have linked down below in the description. I know, shameless plug, same basic idea. Equipment like this lasts. Now, rings and straps, not quite lifetime. Those straps and the cam buckles, they do wear out over time, but they'll last a while. They'll last a really good while. But yeah, I mean, they're very versatile. You could do almost anything with them. They're tools that I will probably use for the rest of my life. So definitely highly recommend investing in them. But more importantly, invest in learning how to use them as effectively as possible, because your results don't come from your equipment, and they don't even come from using equipment. They come from learning how to use your body with the equipment. So, all right. Peter Rabbit, love the avatar, very cute. How do you determine whether your training will be heavy or light on a particular day? Is that predetermined always, or is a certain amount of improvisation involved? Well, Peter, the thing is, I do most of my strength workouts or grind style workouts, which is both. There's a strength phase, which is relatively heavy, and then there is the finisher phase, which is relatively light. So it's always both. I always do a little bit of both. Grind phase or the strength phase is always reps of less than 10. In fact, today I was doing in reps of 3 to 4 with the progressive pull-ups. And then the finisher phase is reps of more than 10. And usually I like to get it around 15 or so, just burning out the muscle. So I always do both in my workouts. And this is something that I get questions on a lot, like periodization and stuff like that. Here's the bottom line is it doesn't really matter too much how you vary your loads and your reps and stuff, as long as you're doing it to some degree somehow. What screws us over the most is when we get stuck. Again, this is that perfectionism thing where like, this is the perfect number of repetitions. This is the correct number of repetitions I need to be doing. Like there was a time I was stuck 3 sets of 10. Everything was always 3 sets of 10, right? But there's value in both ends of the repetition spectrum and everywhere in between, especially when it comes to also building muscles. So we want to use many different loads, many different rep ranges. You can do this periodized where you're doing heavy for a month, light for a month. You could do it different workouts, like heavy workout, light workout. You could do it even in the same workout like I do now. So having a variety of loads and repetitions seems to be more beneficial. It's good for your health, joints, nervous system, all those sorts of things. Very, very beneficial. All right. Next question. What should I do if my job doesn't allow me to sleep 8 hours? I'm right there with you, man. Well, let me rephrase that a little bit. Like, doesn't allow you to sleep 8 hours. A lot of times it's all about more of just setting an earlier bedtime. Like getting a good amount of sleep is more on us than the job. Like, don't blame the job. Like my job requires me to be up at 4 a.m. Now I could go to bed at 11 every night and be like, oh, why does my job only allow me to sleep for 5 hours? But it's really not the job. It's because I'm not allowing myself to sleep 8 hours because I'm not getting to bed on time. And I know a lot of times it's like, yeah, but I've got work to do, but I've got school, but I've got this, I've got that kind of thing. And yeah, sure, there are things that pop up and stuff, but ultimately it boils down to, are you getting stuff done earlier in the day? Like I know I need to get to bed earlier, so that forces me to be at like noon. I'm like, oh, I got to get this thing done. And it's like, but it's only noon. It's like, yeah, but I know I've got that deadline and it's earlier than I think it is. So really getting good sleep is more of our responsibility, and the other stuff is just there. And it's not in the way or anything. It just is what it is. So like a river, we've got to go float around those rocks rather than crashing against them and say, who put this stupid rock here? I can't float around this sort of thing. All right, next question. Don, once again, how can I train legs effectively like my upper body? Progressively, man, like the upper body. Everything that works for the upper body works for the lower body, learning how to create progressive tension. The problem with a lot of people that when they face for the lower body is most people have terrible tension control in their legs, horrible mobility, and atrocious stability. You combine those three things, you're not building jack. You're not going to do very much at all. And that's why a lot of us come to depend on machines like leg presses and stuff. It's like, oh, let me allow you to put a lot of tension in your muscles, and you don't need a lot of mobility, you don't need any stability, and your tension control can be pretty much crap, but you'll still be able to work your legs okay. Just sit here on this padded seat and be comfortable and stuff, and let the machine take care of a lot of the work for you. But when it comes to calisthenics and isometrics, suddenly you don't have that padded seat, you don't have those things being taken care of, and now a lot of people, they face those demons that have been hiding in the corners of, hi, your mobility sucks, your stability sucks, your tension control and your glutes and your quads is atrocious, therefore your leg training is terrible. And then people turn around, you can't build strong legs with calisthenics, blah, blah, blah. So the bottom line is, find what you're missing. You know, if people are like, it's a balance exercise, that's because your stability sucks. You need to work on your stability. Or people say, this is a quad exercise or whatever. That's because the other muscles may not be turning on enough. But leg training is the same as upper body training. Same rules, same principles. It's just a matter of figuring out the pieces that are missing so you can apply those principles. Awesome question, though. Very good, very good. But as a side note, my legs, I got way more for my leg training from body weight training than I ever did with the weights. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, you need weights and stuff. And it depends on what you're missing. But I can't tell you how much. In fact, when I first got into calisthenics training, I was worried that my legs would suffer a lot. And my upper body, I'm like, upper body, pull-ups and dips and stuff can be very effective, but I'm worried about my lower body. In the first 6 months, my lower body improved by far the most. I felt like, what have I been doing up till now? Have I never trained my legs? Because that's the thing that is improving by far the most above my upper body with body weight training. But again, you got to be well-versed in the progressive calisthenics theory. All right, next question. Dave, are you releasing an official book on micro workouts, and how can we support you in the interim? Thank you very much for asking, Dave. I am releasing an official book. I know I keep talking about it, folks. My apologies. It is hard writing this thing. Some books I could just knock out like that. I mean, Grind Style Calisthenics, my best book, I believe, took me 2 months. Granted, I had no life for those 2 months, but I just knocked that sucker out in 2 months, which is like an eye blink in author years. But this micro workout is really, really tough. But the reason why I'm making it is because I'm trying to basically make a book that's going to completely revolutionize the way you approach working out, to make it far more effective and far more practical, and basically improve every workout you ever do for the rest of your life. So that's not something you knock out in a weekend. That's not going to be a little ebook that you just shoot out right there. So the book is largely written. It's just kind of getting my message down and across, because some of these ideas are going to seem really kind of strange, and I need them to be very clear and practical takeaways. But anyway, in the interim, just simple things like, of course, check out my other books down below or on Amazon if you just search Matt Schifferly. Grind Style Calisthenics, Smart Bodyweight Training. Those are good places to start, of course. And also just sharing stuff like this. Like, you like these podcasts, like it, share it, leave reviews on your podcast stuff. Anything you can do to support the channel is greatly appreciated. Thank you so much for asking. All right, good question here. Also from Don. Are archer dips possible? They are possible, but I'm not a fan of them. Here's why. One of the biggest mistakes that people make for archer techniques in general, push-ups, archer pull-ups, archer rows, and archer dips, is what they do is, if an archer pull-up or dip is where one arm goes out straight and the other one is tucked in close. So the point of an archer pull-up or dip or whatever is to load more weight onto one of your arms. Because remember, you progress body weight training the exact same way you progress weightlifting. You add weight. The only thing is, what you do with bodyweight training is you add weight by shifting your weight. So you're adding more weight onto one arm by taking it away from the other. But the mistake a lot of people make with archer techniques is they shift their body, but they still put the same amount of pressure in both arms. One is just out, so it's really working hard, but the force and the weight distribution is still 50-50, which kind of it's not worthless, but it's not really the point of the exercise. So when it comes to dips, especially on things like rings, when people do archer dips, their body's still upright because their weight's still 50-50. But when you put more of your weight onto one arm, particularly with dips, because all of your weight is on one side, your body should tip like crazy, which is very impractical. It doesn't really work very well. So archer dips can be a fun thing to play with, like play around with the arms going back and forth, see if you can, feel it differently in the chest and stuff. But the bottom line is, if you do them properly, you shouldn't be able to do them because I don't know of anybody who can do a dip on one arm with the arm to the side. Now, straight bar dips, that can be a different story where the arm is in front of you and you're coming down. That can be done for sure because you can shift your weight over more onto one arm. But with regular dips, you can get all your weight onto one side. It's not quite going to happen. You can make it happen to some degree with solid bar dips because you only need enough weight on that outstretched arm to keep yourself from tipping. So you can't put more weight on that one side. I should have prefaced that. It can work to a degree, but make sure the whole point of all archer techniques is to put as much weight as you can onto the working arm and less weight on the other. And if it's 50-50 to control your body in space, it's not really going on about that sort of thing. Let's see. Good question here. Simple to the point. Jake, late night cravings. Yes, awesome question. Here's the deal is, remember what I was talking about earlier with effort with motivation and stuff. Now, effort changes depending on your energy level, mental energy, emotional energy, physical energy. And later on in the day, you have less energy, therefore you're going to have more effort. So oftentimes, if we've, quote, been good and really working hard at a lot of effort throughout the day, you're going to have, finally, your body's like, okay, I need to refuel, like give me stuff now because your resolve is low, your ability to fight cravings and stuff is low and so on. So the best answer I can give you is a couple. One is make sure you're eating enough throughout the day so those cravings just don't come up. Make sure you're feeding yourself well, healthy eating. If your dietary approach is based on restriction and just starving yourself or saying, I'm not going to eat anything bad ever again, you're basically putting in a lot of effort and that stress builds up and eventually it just comes crashing down. So I would say put some stuff earlier in the day, more carbs throughout the day, more fat throughout the day. Make sure you're getting the day off with maybe a good breakfast that might help, protein, fat, all these sorts of things. Make sure you're feeding yourself well. At the end of the day, you should feel fed. Right? Maybe a little hungry before bed. Sometimes if people are trying to lose weight, that's sometimes a bit of advice. But for the most part, you should feed yourself well throughout the day. You shouldn't come to the end of the day and be starving kind of thing. You can indulge throughout the day as well. Like I'm a big fan of having sweets and stuff like that throughout the day. Yesterday, I went over, there's a mom and pop shop here in Denver, and I go over there every once in a while because you can get those little Ghirardelli chocolate squares. Like 50 cents a piece. I got a couple of those, dark chocolate, right? So I had chocolate as an afternoon treat, just a couple little squares, but that's something I do most every day is some little bit of chocolate or something a little sweet, like a granola bar or something like that. And that way I'm constantly feeding myself and my cravings. I don't ever feel like I'm depriving myself and then craving to eat half a gallon of ice cream and stuff. And the other thing too is, okay, if you've got cravings, then eat. Like sometimes that's my time when I'm like, oh, time to eat more. And I'll eat peanut butter jelly sandwiches, stuff like that. Ice cream, I do a lot of late night ice cream and stuff like that. Yogurt stuff, because sometimes you need to eat. And if your body's trying to build muscle and it's saying, dude, we need more food, give it more food, especially if you're trying to make some gains there. So I say give into them, but do it in a healthy way. Like don't eat an entire pint of ice cream, like have a dish of ice cream with some peanut butter and some mixed nuts and some fruits on it and stuff like that. The more different stuff that you can put in, the better with that regard. So that's my strategy. I know everybody's going to have different strategies and different things work for them, but that's what I do. Cravings are something that is telling us something we need, and we should give our body what it needs. Now, I will preface that a lot of times when people are like, if I give into my cravings, I'm just going to eat and eat and eat and eat and polish off the entire bag of chips and stuff. Here's the thing to remember about healthy eating with your appetites is if you really, truly have an appetite for something that should be satisfied very quickly. Like if you really want ice cream or chocolate or whatever, like those 2 chocolate squares that I had, done. I was like, I'm good. Oftentimes when we are overindulging, it's because we're trying to satisfy an appetite with food that can't be satisfied with food. So if you're lonely, bored, stressed, you're mad at your boss or something like that, those are sources of stress that need to be addressed, but they can't be addressed through a pint of Ben & Jerry's. So that's why you go through the entire pint and you still want more because it's not a satisfying way to satisfy that appetite. calling up a friend, writing a scathing email to your boss, and then hitting delete or whatever. Like, go know what your appetites really are, what you really want to have or do. And that's the best way to go about it. Because when you have a misalignment, you're trying to satisfy an emotional, stressed out, feeling lonely or whatever, and you're just eating popcorn or whatever, you're always going to keep going through it because it's not satisfying that appetite. All right. Awesome questions. Everybody's on. We've got a record high, everybody, 90 participants here on the live feed. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. I always do appreciate that. Goku, very good. Logan Christopher has some good books on vitamins and nutrition. Absolutely. Definitely check out Logan Christopher. Dragon Door, I'll put some links down below if I can think. His book, Mental Muscle, is definitely a big game changer right there. And the other thing too is, I don't know if everyone knows this, but he's been talking about it on social media. He was affected very much by the wildfires. I mean, house gone. He has photos and stuff on his Instagram of like, this is where my house used to be. And you can see the frame of his squat rack where his basement used to be and stuff. So please go and share some love to Logan Christopher, support him, buy his books, whatever you can. I'm sure he could really use the support right now. It's not the best scenario. He's as far as he's a strong guy though. I mean, he's a really strong guy inside and out, I'm sure, but I feel for him and his family. It's really sad what's happened, how the wildfires have been hitting him. All right, one more question here. Fireball Dash, one arm push-up works, an approach and so on. So basically, here's the thing about push-up progressions that we really need to dial in, is building as much stability as possible with two-arm push-ups. So a lot of times we rush into the unilateral stuff, the archer push-ups, the push-ups on the medicine ball even, like I think that's step 5, maybe 6 in convict conditioning. We're trying to get more weight on one arm. But the fact of the matter is we need a lot of stability in our shoulder and our scapula during two-arm push-ups. So this is why I'm always a big fan of like hands close in kind of stuff, is squeeze those chest muscles as tight as you can. Surround your shoulders with as much tension as possible. Triceps are going crazy. Back is tense. You should feel like you're in a push-up position with your hands close together and people come and just push against your shoulders and you don't move. In fact, that's a good drill to kind of do, is get into like a plank position with your hands close together and have people just kind of push you around and nudge you around a little bit and see if you can stabilize. Because the more stability you'll build in two-arm push-ups, the more stability you'll have in the more progressive single-arm push-ups, and eventually that goes into one-arm push-up progressions. And there's a million different ways you can do that sort of thing. But the more stability you have, the more you'll feel like you can go for that sort of thing. All right. So everybody, thank you so very much. I am out of here. It's time for my dinner. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming on. Again, I do this every Wednesday night, roughly around 7 o'clock down Denver time here, 7 p.m. And as always, please do, again, check out the books down below in the links for Red Delta Project. Books like Grind Style Calisthenics, Smart Bodyweight Training, Fitness Independence, and also check out Red Delta Project's Instagram page for the contest and giveaway this week of Overcoming Isometrics, along with the ISO Loop bundle. I'll be picking 3 winners, even autograph the books if you like. So thank you so much, everybody. Talk to you next week. Till then, be fit and live free.